Hello everybody, my name is Jake Rhodes with ADJ, and today we're bringing you a new video, new live stream, part of our Stay Connected ADJ Outreach program and educational series. Today we're going to be going over a lot of products, these products I have on the table in front of me, that are all going to be about theater and how they work inside of theaters. I'm going to kind of give you a background of what type of light, the kind of history about the light, and talk more about our ADJ options here and why they are really, really awesome for theatrical usage, and a little bit about the ADJ company as well. So, theater. Where do you start when talking about theater? Well, it kind of starts with these three type of lights right here in front of me. We have our ellipsoidals, we have our parkans, and we have our Fresnels. These three types of fixtures have been around in the entertainment industry for many, many years, and they're kind of the workhorses of the theatrical industry even to this day, other than non-touring options, which we'll talk about moving heads last. So, what is an ellipsoidal? This is an ellipsoidal. Something to know about these in particular, that these are industry standard ellipsoidals. So, what I'm going to talk about here is going to be let me clear this out for you guys. What I talk about here is going to be very standard in terms of other equipment and equipment that you have already been used to. So starting at the back, working our way forward, in a normal incandescent ellipsoidal, this is where your lamp would be housed, and then it would be inside of an ellipsoidal reflector. What's the difference between these guys and other ellipsoidal units is that this is actually an LED. These are all LEDs. In fact, everything on this table is actually LED. So the whole entertainment industry is kind of moving away from discharge other than beam units, and it's for a really good reason. Mostly because of flat fields and a lot of other reasons. But these guys are all LED, so we don't have an ellipsoidal, we don't have a reflector in this. It's just an LED chip that shines the light forward. A little bit of bouncing in there. Here we have the yoke. Right now I have it set up so that it's just holding on to here, so we basically can hit the screen, and I'll show you guys how everything looks a little bit. I'm just kind of giving you a background of theater lighting in general. Again, and then once we move away from the main part of the body, we have our shutter assembly here, and that's where things start to get a little bit more fun. We have our left and right, up and down shutters, and fun thing about that, if you're not used to it, is actually the light is opposite. Because of the reflector that's in it, it actually bounces the light opposite to the focal point inside the lens. So if you wanted to adjust the right shutter cut, you would go ahead and move the left shutter. The next we have our accessory slot, which I don't think you guys can see, so I can try to tilt that up a little bit. But right in here we have our Gobo holder and our accessory slot. And again, those are very standard across pretty much all theatrical ellipsoidal units. Again, we tried to make this as industry standard just in case you have anything already in your inventory. Super easy to swap out to these guys. And then you have your standard barrels. Us at ADJ, we're offering pretty much all the standards. Right now I have 14 degrees in here because that's just kind of how it worked out with my scrim. But we also have all the way down to 10 degrees. And the most standard ellipsoidals you're going to be using is going to be 19, 26s, 36s, and 50 degrees. So, and again, all of these are being offered from ADJ. So, that's an ellipsoidal. What are they used for? And now you'll kind of get the point of why I started with these, is because, like I said, these are the workhorses of theatrical lighting. Most ellipsoidals are going to be used for front lighting. Normally you'll have a cool and a warm system of front light. That way you can balance it out or change the moods. A lot of designing in theater is about emotions and feelings and trying to evoke those kind of feelings to your audience. And we also do that through lighting, through scenery. All of it comes together to portray that with the actors. So, like I said, front lights, there's just so many things you can do with this. You can put a Gobo rotator in the accessory slot here, and you can make this a rotating Gobo effect. You can use these as side lights to create a side light. You can use these as in dance performances as shin kickers or on side lights, direct sides. There's just so many positions in theater. Let's see what else we have here. So side light. Another cool thing you can actually do in it, which is a little old school now, you can actually put a motorized mirror in front of it, and that's awesome. You can do motorized irises in these as well. Basically, before we had moving heads that were so commonplace in theater now, we had these ellipsoidals. So these kind of had to do everything. They're static lights, so if you wanted one to be a special, you would have to hang that special just for that one moment, which is pretty standard in the theater industry, but more of touring environments, moving heads are just the way to go. And again, we'll talk about that later. So yeah, ellipsoidals, it really just comes down to position and how you want to use it. And another quick note, deviating from ellipsoidals, just talking about theatrical designing and designing a rig for a theater, I would definitely check out USITT's information right now. They have a lot of really great information regarding how to set up plots and different types of plots, because every space is different between a proscenium, a thrust stage, an arena stage, or even a black box. Every type of lighting is different. For every single type of designer, it's going to be different. So they have a lot of great resources, and a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today are going to be really easy to relate to those plots. So if you want to see any more information about theater design in general, definitely check out USITT. Again, they have a lot of great information. So now that I've talked about ellipsoidals and how they kind of fit into theater, like I said, they pretty much do everything. Let's talk about these units in particular. So I have two units here, and these may look the same, but they're actually very different. One of them is a warm white only, and the other one is a color mixing engine. So this is my color mixing one right here, and this is going to be a hex chip, red, green, blue, white, amber, and lime. So what that means is basically it has all these different color chips in it. And the benefits of that compared to an RGBW unit is that, well, you can get a lot bigger of a, what's the right word? You can get a lot bigger of a color spectrum, aka you can choose a lot of different colors to be mixed with. If you're kind of looking at on a console, kind of looking at a circle with all the different colors you select, this will basically have a lot more area you can cover, aka a lot more colors you can generate with this. Another thing that's really important about these LED ellipsoidals is the CRI rating. And that really comes into effect when we're talking about the lime in the chip. So basically, essentially, both of these units have a very high CRI. The warm white, which we'll talk about in a second, has a CRI rating of 96, and the color one has a CRI rating of 90. So what is CRI? CRI is, to basically put it in layman's terms, the quality of the light. It can be really noticeable when you're on camera. Things will basically look more green if you have a low CRI. It basically just means that light will look the correct way. Like if you have an object and it's purple, the CRI and color rendering as well will basically show if that purple is showing through purple or not. So if a lower CRI unit, colors may be distorted, and a high CRI unit, it will maintain that, and that also kind of goes in well with Kelvin's scale. So you have the color, which has high CRI, so you have good quality colors coming out of it, but you also have the RGB, white, amber, and and lime chip in here, so you can also do different colorized effects, which is a really big deal when it comes to ellipsoidals, because in the past, which I'll pull this out here, this is a gel holder. So in the past, you basically would have to put a gel in this light in order to change its color. So if you wanted to change its color in the middle of the scene, well, that was impossible. And actually in more dance-orientated projects, basically in between dances, what you would do is actually go to all your side lights and you would rip out all the color really fast and throw new color in. These color ellipsoidals makes that job so easy. You can just simply, right from your console, show all the different colors. And then hold on, before I move on, the one drawback of a color LED is that it doesn't have as much punch as a single color chip LED. And that's when I'll move over to my single warm white. So basically this is more along the standard color temperature and will mimic a standard incandescent ellipsoidal more. This is a 3200 Kelvin LED, and this is a 260 watt and 270 watt LEDs. So super bright, super punchy, that will enable you for those long throw distances. And again, high CRI rating. And another thing that's really important about both of these is that they are single source cob chip on board LEDs. What that means, and we'll get into more of this later when we talk about multi-cell sources, is you have one shadow on stage. And for all the LEDs and producers and directors out there, you'll know exactly what I mean when you're having a moment where you just want an intense shadow, kind of noir lighting, and you just have 15 different shadows all over the place. So single source LED technology has come a long ways in the short time it's been available, and it's very, very important when it comes to moving heads, even down to pars, Fresnels, all of your standard theatrical. One shadow is best. So let's take a look at these two units in action. Let's show it right here. Thank you, Candace. So we're going to go over the color really fast. So this is our color LED. You'll see this is full on, really nice, probably around 7,000 Kelvin. But then on the press of a button, you can also switch. So this is the different color chips. I know this looks probably a little orange on screen, but that just has to do with camera sensitivities and adjustments. So this is red, green, blue. This is the white chip, amber, excuse me, not white, amber and lime. Another thing that is really cool about these lights in particular is that we have also built in a Kelvin temperature scale into the unit as well. So this is, if I believe, around 3,200 Kelvin. So this is a nice warm white. So essentially you can achieve Kelvin corrected, color corrected profiles, shots out of a color LED. Again, this is all the way from warm white. I'll go back so you can see that. And again, color changing, which is a really big deal, especially for ellipsoidals. This is so easy, you know, no more color changing, no worried about burning out color, because this is additive color mixing as opposed to subtractive color mixing. And that's what old ellipsoidals were, was subtractive. So you would put the gel in front of the unit and it would subtract all that color from the source, because that's what color is. White is all of the colors put together, and it would only shine that through. So what would happen is you would have a lot of gel burnouts, you'd have to change gel, especially if you have a show that has a couple week run or you're working in repertory. So colored ellipsoidals, so useful, so helpful, and really effective in modern lighting. But sometimes you don't want colored ellipsoidals for the entire rig. And that's why we have our warm white option. So this is around a 3,200 Kelvin warm white LED. And one thing you probably can't notice over camera, but this is a lot brighter than its color counterpart. That's because it can take that full 260 watts and push it right out the lens to create a nice punchy spot. Another fun thing, I have some notes written down here. The Encore Profile Pro Warm White, which is the one we're showing now, actually has a rating of around 10,000 plus lumens, and the color one has a rating around 6,000 lumens. And these are prototype units, so as we get our newer samples and more closer to production, we'll get more fine details. Feel free to check out adj.com if you want to look at any of the CRI ratings. I mean, the photometric reports, they're all online under the Downloads tab. So yeah, again, just a recap of ellipsoidals in general. Any theater you go to is going to have ellipsoidals. Again, incandescent lamps. So these ones in particular, LED, we got a color mixing one, a warm white one. All the standard accessories still go into this unit. So if you have a Gobo rotator, that'll fit in here. If you have a lens tube from a previous industry standard unit, you can throw it in here just in case something happens. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers ellipsoidals pretty well. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the chat. I have Charlotte, who actually is also a technical theater major, over to my right here, and she has eyes on the feed. So feel free to ask any questions as it comes up, and I'll try to answer the best of my abilities. Now, another key infrastructure when it comes to, honestly, not even the theater world, just the lighting world in general. Beginning out, rock and roll stages, events, everything is this light right here. This kind of started it all. And this is called a par can. You want to know the reason why it's called a par can? Is because they used to throw a par light in a can. Simple as that. Now, us at ADJ, we've stepped it up a little bit. Previous incandescent units used to be basically like a, I'm sure you can picture it, a Volkswagen kind of lamp. It used to be a whole lamp that you would put in there, and it would have these little pillows, I believe is the technical term is called, and there's different types of lenses that would go in it. So you have your wide flood lamp, your medium, your very narrow, and basically any time you would want to change that zoom, aka how wide the light was dispersing, you would have to throw a whole new lamp in there. And most par cans are going to be 1K par cans, especially ones that have this type of mock-up. And those are super bright, super hot, and super energy inefficient. Lots of power and lots of amperage definitely has to go into those guys in order to get a full system rig. This right here is our Par Z120 RGBW. So you'll notice it's modeled after a standard Par 64. However, again, no discharge lamp. No changing lamps, nothing like that. This is a 120 RGBW color mixing LED engine. And remember how I was telling you about changing the zoom range? Well, we have that built right in. So right here, I can zoom all the way down to 7 degrees. And there's a little lip right in here that I can push up and down, and that will change the degree of the beam. So right now I can go from 7, which would be like a narrow a very narrow, all the way down to, on this unit, 25 degrees, which is pretty awesome. It's a lot easier than having to do a lamp placement. I believe I was at 16 here. There's some steps in the middle there, so you can have a medium and a very wide or wide flood. Let's turn it on and see how it looks. So, par cans. What do they do? What are they meant for? Again, they're a par and a bucket, and they're meant to throw light everywhere. They're meant to be as bright as possible, try to punch as much light into that one spot, and just create a gigantic bubble of light, really. Again, this is an RGBW options, going through some colors. Red, green, blue, and W. And I'll go full on here just so you can see the brightness. And it may not look like it because of how far away I am, but again, one shadow. It's kind of hard to tell because I'm far away I am from the screen, but there's one shadow again, really important when it comes to theatrical lighting. So these guys are used for washes. Or you can use them a very narrow to do more of a spot, but in general, these are meant to throw light everywhere you possibly can. And again, they're RGBW controllable, or you can mix them for a nice Kelvin, cool white, warm white, whatever you want. You don't have to go up there and do gel changes, which par cans, especially 1K par cans, are the biggest offender of that, having to go and switch out color all the time. Those things just melt, especially saturates, really fast. And let's see, what else can we talk about on this guy? We have, just in case this wasn't diffused enough for you, we still do have, or you still want a little bit of a lighter edge. On camera, this looks a little harsh, but in person, it's pretty nice and soft between the beam and the field angle. But if you wanted to throw a little bit of frost in there, a little LSF, or some color correction for whatever you're doing, that's what you have a gel holder up front here for. And in the back, we have 5-pin ins and outs and locking power ins and outs as well. And that also, you can go in here and set manual modes, you can set the channel modes, you can control it all the way from RGBW by itself if you have a smaller Dmx controller, or you can go all the way to, I think, 12 channel mode, and that gives you access to dimming curves, that gives you access to color macros, color presets, shutter, everything, all the means of control you would want in a LED par cam. Also, something to note about this one, while I am just showing you the color, again, the 120 watt RGBW version, we also have two other versions. We have a 3K, which is a 3000 Kelvin unit, and we also have a 5K, so cool white, warm white, and our color options. So if you want to go for that rock and roll look of a Par 64 but want an affordable LED option, these are definitely a great way to go, the ADJ Par Z 120 RGBW. Another thing that's kind of funny, we also offer some of these in a polished chrome. So if you want to go really old school, rock and roll, polished chrome, we have those available. We had a question?
My question.
Ah.
You guys have barn doors for those too, right?
We do not have a barn door at this moment. But if we can definitely bring one in, that's not a problem. Just reach out to us. They don't take standard barn doors. They're just a little different. But that's why we also have had, the zoom built in to hopefully avoid some of that. Barn doors on par cans is pretty normal. However, what I've always done, just in case you don't have a barn door accessible to you, you can always use some black tack just to take the edge off the unit. So no barn doors. However, you have the zoom in there, and it does not take standard barn doors. It's just a little different. However, a unit we do have barn doors, and thank you, Charlotte, for that great question, is our Fresnel series. Fresnels, what are they? First of all, they're really hard to spell unless you know how to spell it. F-R-E-S-N-E-L, Fresnel. What these are meant for is to create the smoothest light possible. They're basically front light. And what they're used more in theatrical and film studios at more of a daylight Kelvin is to simulate daylight and to wash light all over the place. It's a very, very soft look. With ellipsoidals, you have hard edges. With par cans, you have a really bright hot spot, usually in the center, depending on what lamp you're using. And then it kind of falls off. But if you want a really, really nice front, soft, even wash, Fresnels are the way to go. On this unit itself, one thing to notice, if you've never seen a Fresnel before, this unit looks exactly like a standard Fresnel. So barn doors up front that are removable. You don't have to put it in there. Lots of heat sink on the side of this guy to pull out all the heat from this 135 watt warm white LED cob engine. And on the back here we have a knob, and I'll show you in a little bit when I turn this unit on what it exactly does, but it actually has a zoom built into it, a manual zoom. So basically you can zoom it in and make a nice little hot spot and then fuzz out, and that's really nice for key lighting on presenters. If you have that in your APs, you'll have just one Fresnel right in the middle on a podium. Looks super nice, super fuzzy, super soft. Or you can just zoom it all the way out and wash a huge area. Again, I haven't used a lot of Fresnels in more theatrical applications. It's mostly ellipsoidals and par cans, honestly. But Fresnels are a really great option and can be utilized for a lot of really cool things, especially in film and studio applications, especially when they have a higher daylight Kelvin temperatures to simulate the sun. But this one itself is a 3200 Kelvin, 135 watt only engine. So we have three different versions of this guy. Well, I have two of them here, and I'll talk about this guy in a little bit. But this is our Encore FR 150 warm white. And let me turn it on and show you what it can do. So you'll notice, let me zoom it all the way in here. So now it has a nice little hot spot. Again, really nice, soft, even washes, and it may not show up as much on camera, but if you know what a Fresnel, how it looks like in real life, you'll understand. Very, very cool units. And then I'm just going to zoom it on out, and now we have a nice, even wash across my whole white scrim here. And then this is what Charlotte said earlier, the barn doors come into effect. This is where how I can shape and manipulate the light if I want to reduce it. And this is something to be said about all three of these fixtures here in front of me. What you want to do is get it to the tightest degree as possible before expanding out, because if you have a light that's shining, like I said, throughout this whole entire curtain, but you only want to cover the very center of it like that, you're cutting out so much of your output. So what you want to do is kind of narrow in to a spot you want. Basically, what we call that is called photometrics, and how the light is going to react, how big the light will be in a space. And you can figure that out with CAD or by math itself using some really helpful tools. But these barn doors in particular, say that's great. Let's zoom it in just a little bit. But I want it to from that one line in the curtain to the other. So I can go ahead and shape that right there and then right in there. So now we still have our hot, punchy center, but we're manipulating and shaping the light as we go on. Or the vice versa can be said true. You can also take the top and the bottom off to form a nice little hot spot. These are kind of the way, if you're used to ellipsoidals, these are kind of the way a shutter works, except they aren't background because they're on the other side of the lens. But yeah, those are Fresnels. Oh, other ones that we have to offer. So this is pretty much the big boy of the 80J line, Encore FR 150Z DT, not DTW, Encore 150Z. And we have another one step below that. It's an Encore FR 50, which is a 50-watt warm white LED engine. And then we have our step down, so it's pretty cute, our 2-inch Fresnel, our Encore FR 20 DTW. And this guy is a lot smaller than this guy, than our 150, and a huge difference in power. So the 50 is kind of like a middle in between these. And yeah, so there's one more thing I want to talk about before we move on to our smaller Fresnel here and this other static light. Do we have any questions about standard ellipsoidal units?
There's a question about if Parnells are still a thing.
Parnells are still a thing. We do not have a Parnell. However, Parnells are still used a lot. They basically, how do I explain a Parnell? Well, the most industry standard ones I have used are basically going to be an HPL lip in the back, and instead of having a super long throw distance like this, barrel assembly like this, they're very short. And remember how I was saying that to change the degree angle, you would have to switch out the entire lamp of the par. Well, for Parnells, it's a little different. So Parnells actually have, it's the same outer as a regular Par 64, and it has what we call pillows. And depending on how many pillows and how spaced they are, depends on if it's narrow zoom or wide zoom. But you can actually replace that lens by itself. So the lamp is in the back, and you have the Parnell, which is a really short unit. They're pretty awesome. And you can change the zoom as you want. But most of those are going to be standard incandescent lamps. Well, this is an RGBW. I'm not sure if they make any RGBW Parnells, but I've only used incandescent ones, and they're nice again, but they still burst through a lot of gel, because that is subtractive color mixing as opposed to additive color mixing. Is there another question?
How far are the fixtures from the drop?
So from my drop to my table, I think it's about 23 feet. My entirety of my rig is 25, and we're a little below that. So this is about 23 feet. So this is short in terms of theatrical, which is why I had to throw a 14-degree barrel on my ellipsoidals, because even the 19-degree was just way too big, pouring out over everything. So yeah, normal, depending on the theater, it could be anywhere from 20 feet to 40 feet to 65 feet, just depending on every theater. Like I said in the beginning, every theater is different, every designer is different, every show is different. So a great resource, again, USITT, check it out. There's so many examples of great plots, great different theater, and how it works. Like I said, I can't fit 4 years of a theatrical education in one live stream, but you guys can search out and get that knowledge, especially right now while we're all home. A lot of free resources are available. Any other questions? Cool. So I'm going to talk about these two lights right here. And well, you might say, well, Jake, you just covered Fresnels. I have a little bit of a different way of thinking about these two units themselves. So this unit is a 20 watt Fresnel. Again, that's really nice soft color, throwing, and barn door is applicable as well. Comes with the unit actually. Inside, I've actually added a frost filter because I wanted to show you something really cool. So while a lot of people may use these for front lighting, etc., I think these two units right here, and I'll talk about the Fresnel first, are great for footlights or lighting up footlights. So in my experience, what we've used at a lot of footlights is either strip lighting built into the stage, recessed that pop out, the MR16 lamps, depending on what theater you use. What theater you're in. You can have little LEDs up the front of the stage that you can position. But one thing that we use a lot is, in my experience, is what we call birdies. And it's kind of like a par 64, but it's only this big. And that might be a technical term, and East Coast might call it something different, but here on the West Coast we call them birdies. And they're just tiny little pars. Well, these guys right here is what we would call an inky. It's a small 2-inch Fresnel. So I'm going to turn this guy on, and it's just a knob in the back, and you're not going to be able to see it, but it has a really nice wide disbursement range, especially for really close throws. So if you put this on the end of a stage and you wanted to front light your people, your actors on stage, this would be really great for that. It's super small, low profile, but at the same time, it's triac dimmable. So this unit, the 20 DTW, is special as opposed to everything else on this table, does not have any DMX ports. That's because it's not DMXable. However, what it is, like I said, it's triac dimmable. So what you can do is hook this up to a dimmer, and if you work in the theater industry, you've worked with dimming racks a lot because most standard equipment that people have, if they're not on LED technology, they're going to be using dimmers, 20 amp dimmers, dimming racks, etc., etc. So you can hook this up to a dimming rack or even a portable 4-channel dimming rack. We offer them here at adj.com. And you can use them to, again, light up the front of your audience. They make really nice soft front light. And I think those are really cool. And I haven't seen these have the exposure for foot lighting as they should. So I think that's a great option if you're going for more of an inky. And nobody ever talks about it. So I just wanted to point that out to you. And the next one I wanted to talk about is our Saber Spot RGBW. And I think these were created, honestly, to spot mirror balls and to have that colorized mirror ball effect. However, what we have here are two frost filters. So I will turn this guy on, and you'll notice tiny, tiny little spot. But this is, I believe, a 10-degree filter. This will just kind of take a hard edge off the spot itself. And there's a little clip that you can clip that into. But what's really magical is this 45-degree frost filter right here. And now it's going to be hard to tell. I'll flag it. This is what we call in the theater industry flagging a light, is where you put your hand in front of it to see where it actually is lighting. And again, this is 25 feet. Your footlights are probably never going to be thrown 25 feet. They're more for 3 to 10 feet, really, max. But now, what you have, let me grab control and I can show you guys some cool stuff, is a colorized footlight. And again, super low profile. This thing is tiny. and it also has a built-in scissor yoke. But if you wanted just to yoke it up like that, you can bolt it into your floor. Super, super easy, color control. So let's say if I had a look, I wanted it to look red. Here, let me show that for you guys. Boom, red, green. And this is before you would have to throw a pretty sizable par. I've used ones that are probably 4x4 before, but again, they're super kind of in the way. And depending on the stage and where your audience is sitting, either below or above, again, every theater is different. These can be a great option for footlighting. Colorized footlighting, super easy to use. And I had to write this down because this is a pretty interesting fact. So on the SaberSpot RGBW, you can daisy chain on 120 volts 38 units. And if you're running them on 240 volt, because they have auto voltage built in, you can run 68 of them on one circuit. That's pretty insane. I had to write that down just to share with you guys. So if you wanted to run these along the entire front edge of your stage, you put this frost filter right in front of it. That is a great colorized footlighting. Again, something that I just wanted to talk about with you guys, just because it has a lot of great potential in the theater industry. However, I don't think it's gotten the exposure it's needed. And there's one more unit I want to talk about before we move on to anything else, because it's my last static unit here, is my Cobb Cannon Wash ST. For those of you familiar with the Cobb Cannon Wash, they are really a multi-tool of a light. It's a wash light, but it can be used for so many different things. You'll notice that it has a built-in scissor yoke. So you can put this on the floor, you can wash a wall with it, you can wash anything with it. And its washing potential is huge because it has an 80-degree beam angle. I'm going to turn this on, and you're not going to be able to see all of it, but I think it's worth showing you guys nevertheless. So I'm going to go up. It goes all the way from up there and all the way down there. It's pretty much pointing at the floor right now. It's huge. These can be used for so many different things. You know why? Because we have an optional barn door accessory with this unit. So let's say you didn't really want to go for the traditional PAR 64 look. Well, if you wanted to have a huge, massive throw of light, just light everywhere, you could definitely use this guy. And this comes in two different versions, well, 4 different versions actually. This is my ST version, which is short. We made this for more recessed applications. We also have longer ones available, and again, barn doors, so you can shape and manipulate the light. This in particular is my color version. So just like it's a little different than the PAR Z120, but just like my PAR Z120, you can change it to any color you want. It's additive color mixing, so the more you mix, the brighter it gets, as opposed to subtractive color mixing, where the more you mix, the more dark it is, excuse me. So this one in particular is a red, green, and amber Cobb LED. I chose most of these because they are single source. In fact, I think there's only one unit on this entire table that's not single source. Pretty cool. So again, red, green, blue, and amber. Amber's a little hard to see on camera, but amber's really important for mixing warm whites. So this is full on. It looks a little purple, but we can correct that. Just take the blue out. And now, there you go. You have around I think that's around 4,500 Kelvin, just by lowering the blue a little bit. So if you want to use these as an on-stage wash, something to wash everywhere, especially if you're on a budget, these are great units. But one other application for them, which is actually what these are primarily used for, is actually house lighting. So that's kind of one thing we kind of almost look over in the theater industry, because most of the time we have it built into the infrastructure when we walk into a theater, is house lighting. And house lighting can play a huge part when it comes to building an atmosphere as your audience is walking into the theater. It's really important to make what we call a paintbrush. That's the right term. Basically, you're shaping the light and you're making different looks for the audience to walk in. Colorized house lighting can take that to a whole new level. So these ST versions, or even the longer version, can be recessed into the ceiling or just hung on wherever. Like I said, they take And you can put a regular M10 bolt, regular clamp in there, put them anywhere you want. And especially for the church market, these have been widely accepted and widely used. There are a lot of great examples of these being used for churches at 80j.com. But yeah, colorized house lighting, being able to take what's going on the stage and move it out to the audience is a pretty cool concept. And again, LED, so 50,000 hour life. You can use them they're 80-degree beam angle. You can use them as a wash light, as a work light. They're so versatile. And one other thing before I move on to something else, these also come and ship with, these almost look like Fresnel lenses, but they're actually reducers. So I believe one's a 45-degree and one's a 60-degree. Can't remember exactly off the top of my head. But these, let me see if I can turn it on and get this guy's going for you. So I'll take this one, and now you can actually see the ends of the beam. So if 80 degrees is way too much for you and you want to shape it a little bit more, there you go. And I'm just holding it in there, so it may not look the best, but they actually have a clip, kind of like how you would reset a par. You pinch two little prongs here and you can put the different filter in. But it comes with that 180-degree angle. And again, that mixed with a barn door, if you're not too keen on having a theatrical standard, it needs to look like an ellipsoidal or a par, those are some great options, again, really cost effective. Any questions?
There was one question. Someone's asking why not do a color, a cool white, and a warm white version?
Ah, there's the other two versions. Thank you for reminding me. So, like I told you, I showed you the Cobb Canon ST and the Cobb Canon Wash ST and the Cobb Canon Wash Regular. There's no extra name for that. However, we do have a dynamic white version of this available. And those have been popular still with house lighting to achieve a nice either warm white or cool white light. But you can also, I believe the range on the dynamic white one is 2700 to 7200 Kelvin. So again, you take this technology and everything I said about this unit while being colored and you put it in a dynamic white package, which is super great for achieving color corrected washes. Or if you want to do a front light, if you're on a really big budget and you wanted to do a front light system but you want to be able to color balance for different skin tones, which is a very big deal, the dynamic white option will be really nice. And again, it actually will be a little bit brighter than the color option because that's a dedicated chip to either warm white or cool white, so you get a little bit more oomph and power out of it as opposed to additive mixing. Same thing with the ellipsoidal, the 260 watt, the warm white is almost 4,000 lumens brighter than the color version, but that's just kind of how single chips go. Any other questions? Alrighty then. I will take that as a point to move on. Oh, one more thing before I move on. I totally forgot about this too. This guy comes in multiple options. So this is the SaberSpot RGBW. This has the power ins and outs, Dmx ins and outs. However, we also make a SaberSpot DTW, which is a 3200 Kelvin, and it dims down to a nice amber. So it has that warm white 3200 chip in it, LED chip, but it also has an amber chip in it, so you'll achieve that nice incandescent glow, which is beautiful, by the way. So there's that one. Then we also have just the regular 3K version. So if you don't want it dim to white, if you don't want it dim to warm, it's just 3K on, 3K off. We have that version available for you as well. And then we also have the Go version. And I think these have a great potential when it comes to the theater industry, especially for foot lighting, is because it's a cableless design. And I've used a lot of wireless things in my history, when a lot of it comes down to LED tape, and that kind of works. But LED wireless DMX with units has come a long way, and I think a lot of people should try to give it another shot because it's super powerful. So our SaberSpot Go, it looks very similar to this, other than the last quarter of it is cut off, so it's a little bit smaller, and it doesn't have a scissor yoke. Instead, it has one with a little magnet bracket on the bottom, but still has a hole, so if you wanted to put them inside the stage, you can. So it's a battery-operated RGBW 15-watt spot. So it's exactly the same thing as this, but it's battery-operated and wireless. So you could just basically, before your theater show begins, you can go and place these on the edge of the stage, turn them on, hook them up, ready to go, and then you could take them off at intermission, you could take them off whenever you want, or at the end of the show. And again, cableless, worry-free, especially if you get your Wi-Fi working correctly. It's been pretty stable for me when I used wireless DMX. But again, with wireless DMX, you got to make sure you know what you're doing and make sure you're testing the values and the different Wi-Fi channels there are in your environment to make sure you have a stable connection. And that's a whole nother video and a whole nother topic, but again, trying to stay focused on our theater just by itself. So yeah, those are all the static lights we have in front of us. So I hope that's giving you guys some really good options when it comes to your modern ellipsoidal units, your modern Parcan units, your modern Fresnel units, all the way down to some nice foot lighting options. And again, if you want to go pretty, not old school, but if you want to go pretty regular, you want to do strip lighting for your front lights, we also have that available. I just chose these to highlight for you guys because I thought they're really cool. And yeah, so any other questions? Other than that, we're going to move on to our moving head washes, which are over here. So the first one I have for you guys is our Visi Move RGBW. And this one's really cool. It's 135 watt. It's 140 watt. There it is. 140 watt RGBW color mixing engine. Let me make sure that's right. So it basically has RGBW chip, and again, it's a cob chip, so it's single source, so no weird shadows on stage. Let's turn it on and see what it can do. So this is it zoomed all the way in, just kind of like with our Parcan. It has, well, that one is a manual zoom, but this one has a motorized zoom since it's a moving wash unit. And I'll go ahead and zoom all the way out for you. And I'm going to run my hand in front of it to kind of flag it. And again, you'll see there's a little bit of different shadows, but it's single source opposed to the light I'll show you guys next. So nice shadows, nice color rendering, pretty nice and smooth dimming, and again, being able to achieve color from a wash unit. So what's really nice about moving head washes as opposed to static washes is that, again, you don't need a unit, you don't need a single unit to do one thing. That's what's really nice about moving heads. They can do a number of things. You can move them anywhere you want to and do anything you want with them. As opposed to, let's say you wanted to highlight a person with the ellipsoidal, you have to have the right gel, the right barrel, you'd have to have all these things and you'd use it once for one time, and that's pretty standard when it comes to the theater industry, but now we have a lot of really great options when it comes to moving heads. Oops, showing the wrong thing. Here we go. So I'm just showing you guys some of the colors, some nice color mixing. And again, with the I don't think I mentioned this before, but the Visi Move RGBW has a zoom range of around 9 to 37, which is pretty nice for a wash light. And its lumen rating is 3,800 lumens. And again, you can look at all of our photometric reports online under the Downloads tab if you want to look at it yourself. So you can mix warm white, cool white with this. And again, single color chip. Oh, another thing that's actually nice to mention about this unit as well is it actually has a low fan mode built into the unit. So you will actually be able to switch it to a low fan mode, aka no noisy fans, if you want a quiet moment. Which are really important in theater because you definitely don't want to have a really dramatic moment, and then all of a sudden you hear above you, that's super annoying, and not to mention your director will be really mad at you. So low fan modes and moving heads are really important, and I'll talk more about that when we get into our profile units, but I just wanted to mention that the Visi Move RGBW does have that built in. So that's our Visi Move RGBW. I think that's all there is to talk about it. It's a pretty simple moving head wash fixture. Again, instead of having to rig one unit, you can rig one of these and take the place of 5, 10, whatever extra specials, or you can make a whole system of wash light out of this as well. Now, I want to show you kind of the biggest wash light that ADJ has to offer, which is our Visi Wash Z 37. So this has 37 20-watt RGBW LEDs. And this has a really nice zoom range. I think one of the best. I brought this out because I think it's one of our best lights we have to offer. It has a zoom range of 10 to 60 degrees. And I'm going to zoom this out now, and I don't think you guys are going to be able to see the full extent of it. Yeah, it's surrounding the wall all the way up to the ceiling, off the sides. It's massive. And this is back to about, I think, 20% zoom. So again, RGBW LEDs, and there's 37 of them. That's a lot of power. Oh, so another really cool thing that I haven't talked about at all is multi-celled units. So the Z37 has up to 11 zones of control, and I'm kind of running through those now. And what that enables you to do is what we call eye candy. And again, depending on the show, depending on the space, depending on a lot of different things, which is including your design team and your director and the general type of performance you want to go with this unit, these can be, one, used to wash light, hence they're a wash light. You can use them as a sort of a beam spotlight because it goes all the way down to that 10 degree, especially if you have some haze in the air. It's a nice solid beam. But you can also use this as eye candy. So if you want to put this on, let's say you have this on your third electric, just right behind your actors, you can bring this down. If you're doing a more rock and roll show, you can bring this down and do some really cool eye candy effects with this unit. And these are, right now I'm just running through some different macros that I have. But there's a lot of potential for doing a lot of really cool things with this unit. Like I said, 11 different zones. So I'll show you now that I have this available to me. I'm going to zoom this all the way out, and I'm going to run my hand across it. See that? You probably can't. It's just shadows all over the place. And that's because every single one of these diodes is a source emitting light. So unlike every other light, every other unit here, I think other than the Sabre spot, this is not single source. So you have multi-shadows, which can be an advantage or a disadvantage depending the way you look at it. Again, different artistic styles. But this guy also has a quiet fan mode built in, and it's just a workhorse wash light. So if you want to do eye candy effects, you want to do washing. Another thing that I mentioned on a stream with Edgar Bernal the other day, there's a new software update for this guy, version 1.3, which actually adds a dynamic white channel mode. So you have your RGBW control, but now instead of having to mix it by yourself and taking a guess, especially if you don't have actors on stage, it's really hard to tell how skin tones react. We have actually built in a Kelvin color temperature fader, all the way from around, I think it's 2800 Kelvin again to 7500 Kelvin. That's pretty standard for most of our units. So you can do, let me see if I can grab it for you guys and show you. Here we go. Yep, 2700 Kelvin, 28, 29. Basically we go all the way up to hundreds. So now we're getting into cooler white, 5K, 58, 62, and 7K. So you can have this as a warm white, cool white, wash light. Again, workhorse, pretty awesome. Eye candy, lots of cool things to do with him. Any questions about moving head wash lights? And while you guys type that, I'll talk a little bit more. So our Z37 is actually the bigger brother to our other wash light, our Visi Wash Z19. And it's exactly the same, just 19 cells instead of 37 cells. So there is a significant drop of power, but for a lot of people, they don't need to push that much power through. So that's another great option. And I mentioned that we had this is the color option for our Par Z Move RGBW. And I think, again, this is a great unit, which is why I have this one here. But we also have another unit in the same family. It's called our Par Z Move. And that's just a 3K wash light. So like I said before, you're going to get a lot more output with the single color chips, but then again, you don't have color control. So you really just kind of have to pick what you want. I rather have the color control and a little bit more units. That way I can do a lot more things with them as opposed to a standard light. But again, it all depends on what you want and you want your fixture to do. So we have any questions? No? Awesome. All right, guys. So what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about the real meats and the goodies, is we're going to walk over here and talk about our profile moving heads. And I saved these for last because I think these are definitely the most exciting units. And they're kind of the future of the whole entertainment industry. So instead of having to rig, kind of like what I said about specials with moving head wash lights, even more so when it comes to profile moving heads. So, and so if you wanted to have, let's say you wanted to have you have an actor downstage left and there's a dramatic moment, inner monologue, and you need a special light that actor. Instead of having to rig a whole nother unit just for that one special, that's what they're called, that's what we call them, specials, special conventional unit, you can use a moving head and spot them with this instead. So obviously, pan and tilt, they move around, you can put them wherever you want, but there's a whole new potential and opportunities when you get moving heads. So things that are inside all three of these moving heads. We have a color wheel, so you can change colors. One of them has a CMY color filters, so instead of being locked to a certain color flag, you can actually, they are basically flags that come in and out, cyan, magenta, and yellow, and between those you can mix to pretty much any color RGB you can mix to. Don't ask to mix brown, can't mix brown. Other than that, you have color, you can switch colors, you have gobos, and what those are really used for, other than effects and beamage, what's really important, and most of the time what I use gobos and moving heads for, is to bring texture to the floor, bring texture to the actors. Texture, especially from the side or from the back, adds depth. And that's something you really need when it comes to theaters, especially the more deep you are, the deeper the theater, the more depth you need to show your audience. So basically what you can do from there is add a Gobo texturized effect, and I will show you kind of what that looks like when we start to go into each fixture by themselves. Let's see, well, we also in these units we have prisms. What that does is it splits the single beam into, let's say we have a 6-facet circular, so it has 6 different, we basically take that one and split it into 6 different ways, and that can be used for a lot of different things. You could take that same Gobo effect or whatever spot, and you can amplify that in a whole huge range, which will cover more space. You can use those prisms are really nice for beam effects or kind of aerial effects for the audience. Linear prisms are the same thing except lengthwise. Those are really great for running the same effect over a length of the area, and again I'll show you those on my screen in a little bit. Something else that's in these guys are frost filters. All of these have frost filters, which is actually a really big deal for ADJ, especially in the Focus series altogether. And what that'll do is that will apply a nice light frost over your hard edge beam. That's the one thing that profiles without a frost filter could not do very well. You could always run the focus, but running the focus refers to basically moving the focus a little in or a little out to fuzz out the gobo. So a question what we have is, do any of the profiles have a shutter? On these units, no. There is no mechanical shutter because these are LED. However, if you're using a discharge lamp or a discharge lamp moving head or an arc lamp, anything that's an actual lamp turning on, yes, you will actually have a mechanical shutter. Basically 2 metal plates that will chop to turn the light on and off. But since these are LED, just like the rest of these here on my table, oh man, there's so much history to talk about when talking about moving heads. What can I say? So LEDs natively, if you don't know this, are actually always strobing, but they're strobing at a rate which our eyes can't detect. And that kind of goes into when you record LEDs. It's called the LED refresh rate. And LEDs, when they're on, they're actually strobing so fast that we can't see it, which is why it looks weird on camera, as opposed to a discharge lamp where it's always on Sometimes units can go into hibernation modes, and we have those on some of our lamp beam fixtures, but most of the time they're going to be always on, always usage, which are always going to eat into your lamp life. Some units, like a 16-hour lamp, will have a 1,500-hour rating. That means 1,500 hours if that's on, and really it's usually before that you need to change the lamp and put a whole new lamp in it. And those can range from, I've seen some that are $40 all the way up to some discharge lamps that are hundreds of dollars. So the difference between the discharge lamps and these, since these are all LED, is that one, they all have 50,000 hour LED ratings, and two, when you turn them off, they're off, and they're not emitting any heat. And again, no mechanical shutter. So if you are doing a shutter strobe, which is kind of convoluted when it comes to LED technology, but that's kind of what we call it, that's actually the LED just on and off over and over again. So we talked about Gobos, we talked about Prisms, we talked about frost. Oh, that's where I was at, frost. So light frost, two of these units have light frost, and then there's also heavy frost, which will basically turn your profile with a hard edge into a complete wash light. And I will, again, show all these to you. So basically, if you wanted to have a nice wash, like your wash moving heads, you can accomplish this in these moving heads as well. And another thing to talk about, so these units are capable of spot, they're capable of wash. Another thing, which is mostly our CMY 300, since that's a true hybrid fixture, is that it can also do beams. So in this unit we have an iris, and actually in the 6Z as well, and Gobo reducers built in. So if you want to use this unit as a beam unit, you can also do that as well. So that's what hybrid means, is that those are the typical three different types of moving heads, or just lights in general. You have your beam, your spot, and your wash. And the CMY 300, which is a true hybrid, can do all of that. These two are spotlights, hence the Focus Spot series. However, they have frosts in them as well to do wash. So let's take a look at our smallest unit and work our way up. So we had a question, what are the weights of every unit? And I actually do have this written down. So our CMY 300, which is the big boy over there on the left, is going to be 51 pounds, and that's going to be a 400 watt max power rating. And we'll get into more specifications as we talk about each unit themselves. The 6Z, which is in the middle, is going to be 42.4 pounds. And the 5Z, which is the small one, is 23 pounds. For whoever asked that question, there you go. So we're going to talk about our Focus Spot 5Z, which is the small one on the left there. So, as you can see, this is a white open spot. All three of these units are going to have cool white LED emitter chips. And that's we kind of choose cool white because we believe it also looks the best on stage. It's the most punchiest, especially to the human eye, as opposed to more warmer options. Plus, it's also different when you add in different colors and stuff like that. There's a whole science behind it, why we like to use this one, but we usually go for the highest Kelvin temperature, around 7K. So this unit's, the 5Z, has a zoom range of 11 to 22 degrees. So for people that have varying distances of stage, you can open and close that spot as you need. And again, and one thing that is about theater altogether, it's not about how fast you can do effect, it's about how slow you can use that effect. And we'll get into more of that when I show you some more of a Gobo Effects, etc., etc. So here's the color wheel I was talking about. Unlike most of these units you've seen so far, which have been additive color mixing, these units are subtractive. So what that means is that we have a cool white LED engine, and just like how you would change color on a incandescent unit, you would put, on these units, they're actually little dichroic glass color flags that are in a color wheel that will change the color. So again, this is subtractive color mixing, so when you add more of a color to it, it reduces the light output. On this 5Z, itself, for those of you that are familiar with the 4Z, we took the 4Z, it's pretty much the same exact body and shape of it, and we've added a bunch of extra goodies to this unit to make the 5Z. So we have added an extra color wheel, which contains things like CTO, CTB, and a UV filter. So this is your CTO right there. Let me go back and show you guys the CTB. There you go. So that's the CTB, and that looks kind of like the open white, but it's different, I assure you. And there's your more blue, there's your CTO, and these, what takes that 7,000 color LED source and basically applies a color filter in front of it and changes the color, so color correction. And these are really important when, again, you throw in your wash effects or your frosts, so you can achieve color corrected frosts as well as open spots from the unit as well. So, so again, the second color wheel which we added has a lot more pastels and more light colors, a lot more colors that you don't see on a standard color wheel. And there's your UV. So here's your light frost. It's a little hard to tell over camera, but in person it's really nice light frost out. So again, like I said, you would have to you usually would run the focus on a unit to achieve a light frost like this. However, with this there is an actual independent light frost. So you can go ahead and frost that. Just take the hard edge off the open spot. This is really nice for if you wanted to spot a person by themselves but don't want hard edges, like a harsh blue line across their face if the actor accidentally walks out of their light, which it will. If there's one thing about actors, they will always walk out of their light. And that's a theater joke. But another thing, wow, this doesn't show up on camera as much as I wanted it to. But it also, let me see if I can play with the focus a little bit. Well, that's really nice and fuzzed out for me. However, the light frost is also nice for Gobo Effects. In the 5Z, you can actually add this will layer over your Gobos and to create a nice little frost. Again, this is a texturized effect with the frost over it. Let me actually load this and pull frost out so I can show you what I'm talking about. Here we go, 0 frost. So now I need to actually focus the unit back up. But that's what it would look like without the frost. And a lot of people don't want it to look like that. A nice frosted out looks really nice. And again, like I said, it's not about how fast something goes. It's about how slow something goes. It's about the movement. It's about art. It's very carefully crafted looks. Going off some other features of this unit. Again, we're covering over frost filters. This is the unit's heavy frost. And this goes really well, like I said before, with the 3K and the CTO and CTB filters. So here's the CTO. And again, you can just see, you might not be able to see, but if we had a person on stage, they would look they wouldn't look as liver failure-y, which is kind of funny, than you would with an open spot. So this CTO basically adds basically a little bit more of a warm white to the light, and it will color correct people's skin. Same thing with the CTB. If you wanted a cool look, this is built right in so you can achieve these color corrected washes, or just general red, green, whatever you want, it washes. And again, something that's really important, it's not how fast you can do something, it's how slow you can do something. I don't know if you guys can tell over camera, but that is a nice, smooth dim. And that is, you may just say, oh, well, of course, it's a moving head. It's got to dim smoothly. But having LEDs dim smoothly is actually really something hard. It's not easy to be able for the LED to do that because, again, it's actually flickering at a rate that should be strobing. Another thing about LEDs, and I'm going to have to come into frame just to describe this, and this is again a really big concept I'm going to try to explain in as fewest words as possible. When it comes to incandescents versus LEDs, they have dimming sine curves. So what a normal incandescent unit, what it would use to dim, would look something like whoosh, nice and smooth. Instead, what LEDs do, it's kind of like your cell phone signal. So instead of it going nice, smooth fade, Instead, it goes go, 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 go. And every single time it has a little bar, that's what we call LED dimming. The more of those bars, the smoother the LED will be. So the fact that these units are really dim really smoothly is a pretty big accomplishment for ADJ. I will say, over the last 5 years, we've worked really hard to introduce products that we're really proud of and that are going to work for the industry. So I went over the 5Z and what it can do, but why is it here? Well, the 5Z is here because I think this is the perfect little black box introductory moving light moving head. There's not much you can mess up on it. It's very simple, and it has so many features in it for how big it is, and again, it's very cost effective. So I would definitely say this is for small to medium theaters, prosceniums, but again, I think this has a lot of potential in the black box theater and smaller theatrical environments. This has a 200-watt cool white LED, same thing as the 4Z, but again, we've added a lot of jam-packed features that we really wanted to put into this unit for the house of worship and theatrical markets. Fun fact for those of you that do theater and not church, or church and theater, they operate very, very similarly in terms of how lights are placed, in terms of positions and everything like that. So a lot of what theater uses, church uses, et cetera, et cetera. So again, small to medium applications, the 5Z is going to be really great for that. Now, stepping it up to its big brother, the Focus Spot 6Z, this is where we gain a lot of extra bells and whistles. Now, there's something that I wanted just to say on top of this that kind of sets it apart from the rest of the Focus Spot line. I'm going to turn off this unit. Notice you'll see all around it, there are no pan and tilt locking anywhere. I don't know if you can see that. But there's no pan and tilt locks anywhere on this unit. And that's pretty standard when it comes to these type of lights, especially in their price margin. However, with the 6Z on the side here, I don't want to unplug it because I'm about to use it, we have a locking tilt knob and a locking pan on right front there. So for basically when you're putting these in and out of cases between shows, or you're wanting to take these down, they lock. And I can't tell you how important that is. It's such a small feature that gets overlooked so many times by a lot of the low to mid entry level lighting manufacturers, and the 6Z nails it. I know that's small, but it's a big deal to me, and maybe a big deal to a lot of people out there who work with lights a lot. Now let's take a look at the unit itself and see what it can do. All right, so here's the open spot. Something about the 6Z is that it has a 9 to 28 zoom range, and again, we'll show you that here, nice and wide. I'm going to move him over to the center. I have its position paletted, so everything is right there, but I'll just go ahead and move the unit. So that's a nice zoom range. It's a lot more than the 6Z because you have a lot more length for the unit to actually be able to zoom in depth. So that's why you have a lot more of a zoom range. So the fact that the 5Z in that tiny body has 11 to 22 degrees is pretty miraculous. I will definitely say that. So the 5Z in that 200 watt has around 5,100 lumen output. And again, check the photometrics online, you're more than welcome to. And the 6Z outputs just under 11,000 lumens. So let's look at what it can do itself. So it has a built-in motorized iris. So sorry, excuse me. So basically, if that spot doesn't go any smaller than what you want it to, let's say you want to have a special and you don't have any follow spots on this show, you want to do a special right on an actor's face and nothing else, you can run this all the way in, and I actually have this zoomed out more. It does go in a little bit more, but yeah, so you can use this to bring the iris in and close that spot even smaller. This is open again. So this unit, again, has the same exact color flags color wheels as the 5Z. So you have a lot of the all the similar colors, the really nice soft blues, the pinks, the more of cream colors, pastels. Again, you don't get a lot of the pastels in a lot of color wheels. A lot of them are just going to be really intense, deep saturates. And that's where the 6Z and the 5Z really shine, is the extra colors it brings into. So here we have our CTO and our CTB filters. And there we have our UV. And now we'll move over. Again, this unit has a light and heavy frost, so you can take the hard edge off an open spot. And again, the camera just does not do it justice. But luckily, when you're lighting for theater, you're usually not lighting for camera work, which is very, very different applications and how you would go about that altogether. So here we have our heavy frost. Again, we can achieve either a hard spot or wash from this unit. Well, this is the CTO filter, so color corrected washes, CTB. And now we're going to go into Gobo Effects. So this is where the Focus Spot 6Z also takes a huge jump from the rest of the Focus Spot line. This unit actually has 2 Gobo wheels, which is not crazy to be unheard of on a profile unit. However, both of them are rotatable, indexable, and replaceable, which can mean a lot of different things. It means you could put your own custom Gobo into the unit, and a lot of people do that for a lot of different shows, whether you want a certain texturized breakup, especially in the educational environment. They always seem to be changing the Gobos out a lot. And again, it's not, I'm going to go back to that look to talk about one thing. I'm going to pull this up. It's not how fast it goes. I'm going to take it all the way down to a nice slow rotation. It's about how slow it goes. And if you'll notice, it's not steppy. A lot of other lights, especially ones that aren't as high quality as these units, are actually going to go gug, 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 gug. And that's my verbal way of saying stuttering. But this is possible because it also has 16-bit motor increments. So again, remember how I was telling you about kind of like the signal bars of your phone? Again, this is the same way. So there's a lot more tiny increments in that curve, allowing you to do a lot more slower movement effects. Slow as possible be your friend in theater, trust me. You don't want anything too crazy fast. You want to work with the designer, not against them. You want to work with the actor, not against them. So okay, we'll move on. I talked enough about Gobos. So this is the Prism. It's gorgeous. This is a 6-facet circular prism, which achieves a lot of really great effects. Really quick, just to give a shout out to Chuck Green. He actually just did a under the hood video of this 6C, and I'm not going to open this unit up or anything like that. But something to know about this unit as well is that it's really modular on the inside. Meaning, well, let's say if there's something wrong with the Gobos, a Gobo wheel, you can actually pull out the whole Gobo wheel and maintenance that instead of having to do unsoldering cables or anything like that. There's a lot of disconnects. I definitely recommend you guys check out Chuck Green's under the hood video of this unit. It's really cool. And just to tell you how it ends, the whole inside of the light, all the meat and guts of the unit end up being pulled out, which is, I didn't even know that was possible, which is really impressive. So modularity on the inside in terms of service and maintenance is also a really big deal. So here's your 6-facet linear prism. And again, I'm just showing you what it looks like, but we'll go into more uses of theater and how we should use this unit in a second. So now I have a nice slow rotation on my Gobo wheel here, and this is a texture breakup. Another thing I forgot to mention about these two units is that we actually revamped the Gobo wheel on the 5Z, and which went into the 6Z as well, to include a lot more texture and breakup options. There are still options for beam and effect Gobos. However, we really wanted to push these units to the theatrical house of worship market, so we added a lot of texture and breakups. So this is how you could use a profile to create a texturized depth effect. You can have this running down the length of your stage. This will add a lot of breakup against the actor, so you can actually see them moving through the light. and to create depth in the moment, not to mention also add a lot of feelings, emotions. It's all about working with the actor to help them portray what they're trying to portray. So it's a scene-to-scene environment. But I'm going to slide my light frost in there, and you'll notice it's a linear frost, so the left side of the gobo, I think it's about 50% in right now. So the left side of my prism is actually super frosted out, and the right side is not. So again, you can layer all these things on top of one another to create effects that you've never been able to create before in the focus spot line. So this is a gobo with light frost. We talked about this already. Again, a lot of really cool breakup effects, or if you're running haze, you can do some really cool atmosphere, mid-air effects with this. It really doesn't do it justice over in camera. And now, the pièce de résistance of having two gobo wheels is gobo morphing. So a lot of high-end fixtures, especially on our sister company side, have what we call an animation wheel. However, with the 6Z, we don't have an animation wheel. Instead, what we have is two gobo wheels that can be layered on top of one another, and then you can grab the focus and put them in between each other. If you were here in the beginning of our live stream, that's exactly what I was doing. I had two gobos in, and I was running an effect over them. Let me slow it down. So now you have a really cool texturized breakup effect. That's movement. I call this my water look. It basically mimics an animation wheel, and you can do so many effects with this. The uses are limitless. And here is it just by itself without a prism, so you can see exactly how that works. So now I'm going to load this up. I'm going to run the focus. So you'll see there's my first gobo, and there's my second gobo. And that's just me running the focus. Now I can run in between there, and that's a really cool breakup texturized option that you can't get in a lot of units. And I don't know if I programmed it in, but there's another look I wanted to show you guys, so I'm just going to grab it personally. And let's see here. Let's look at this one gobo option. So I believe it's gobo 1. There it is. And this is a dichroic glass 4-color split gobo. This can be used for an immense amount of things. I wish we had some haze in the air to show this, but it can basically be used to create multi-colored effects. And this effect itself, washing down onto a stage, is absolutely gorgeous because you can combine this with either frost to fuzz it out, but it really comes into effect when you have your circular prisms and your linear prisms. And if you haven't checked out, we're going to be posting our Focus Spot 6C video pretty soon, so when that comes out, definitely check it out, and you can see this unit in action even more there. One last thing about these two units before I move on to our kind of flagship profile moving head is we talked about it a little bit before, but what we call silent fan modes. Again, when, let's say you have an effect running, it's a crazy scene, super loud, and then it's nice, and then boom, the very next scene, it's something very quiet, internal monologue, whatever, very quiet on stage, or it's a dance show. You don't want your moving heads, and this is more of a problem when it comes to discharge lamps because of how hot they get, but you don't want your fans to kick up and go because, especially in some units, they get loud. So, what we've done in these two fixtures, and pretty much all the ADJ lights going forward that are going to be focusing more on theatrical and church venues, we have introduced silent fan modes into these as well. So, what silent fan mode does to this in these units is actually reduce the intensity of the LED itself, so the output, to around 60 or 70% of its full output, but the fans will not spin any faster than a certain decibel noise that we do testing on. So basically it won't be loud. So even though you have an effect going on, you can kick on silent fan mode and it will eventually drop the LED down in intensity a little bit, but you won't hear them at all, which is really important because hearing units are really disappointing when you get them in the air, especially if you have a lot. Like you have a rig with 20 moving heads, it can get really loud really fast. And the last thing I'll talk about about silent fan mode is that they are Dmx controllable. That's really important because sometimes when you're having looks, you want it to be as super bright, as super intense as you possibly can, but then you want it to be dim in other moments. So what you can do is you can actually pop this unit into silent fan mode in and out, back and forth between a Dmx, so you don't have to go up to the unit and set it in silent fan mode. You can have complete control over this unit altogether, which is awesome. And I'm actually going to unpower this guy because I'm done talking about him. Let me get him out here. I wanted to show you guys one more thing, and that's the back of this unit. The only reason I show it to you because this ADJ hasn't really came out with units that is sophisticated as the back of this unit than the Focus Spot 6Z has. So you'll notice you'll have IP locking ins and outs, even though the fixture's not IP rated, that's just the plug. We have 2 Ethernet Cat 6 ports, and that is for controlling either over ArtNet or for ClingNet, and I'll talk about ClingNet in a second here. And then we also have 3-pin and 5-pin DMX ports in the back here. This is a big step for ADJ in terms of how sophisticated and how nice it looks, honestly, and how far we've come as a company. So ClingNet, really quickly, is another huge protocol. We won't talk about that, but basically it is lighting over video technology. So you can hook this up to a Media Master or a video server, anything that does ClingNet. You can actually run lights over video. So another really cool feature for the Focus Spot 6Z. Now, the last one we're going to talk about is our CMY 300. So the CMY 300, which is completely different than these other two, has CMY color mixing. And that's a really, really big deal when it comes to profile moving heads for theatrical applications because you can have seamless color mixing. So let me turn it on and show you exactly what I mean. So right here we have our open spot. And this is a little bit more warm white than the other two units. Not warm white, it's just not as high of a Kelvin temperature. And again, that's just unit to unit. So next, we'll show you the zoom range. So this thing is massive. Massive zoom range, super impressive. It has 8, which you're seeing now, and you won't be able to see this, all the way out to 46, which is really impressive when it comes to a profile moving head. And that's not even with any frost or anything integrated into it. It's a hard spot that zooms all the way out to 46. But you can also zoom in with its motorized iris. Again, this is a zoom all the way out just so you can see it. Has a really nice spot, so if you want to zoom in all the way. And here is where CMY comes into play. This is cyan, this is magenta, and this is yellow. And between those 3 colors, you can mix almost any RGB color possible. Let me just go into color and show you something really cool here. Let's see if I can grab this, and here we go. So now I am switching between, I basically have a color mixer up right now, and I'm just dragging my finger across it in my console. I can seamlessly and smoothly, this is a little fast, but switch between all these colors. In a color wheel, this is not possible. Basically, you have the colors set, and you can only choose between them. You can do half colors, but it's not as intricate as a CMY color mixing system. Again, this is a super big deal for this profile moving head. But on top of that, the thing that doesn't work really well with CMY is saturates, dark saturated colors. And that's because the more you're mixing with CMY, the less output you're putting through. Again, subtractive color mixing. So we've also included a color wheel, so basically you can get those saturates as well. And that's, again, pretty standard when it comes to profile moving heads. So we'll just go through those. Again, CTO and CTB filters, so this has a heavy frost, so if you want to have color-corrected washes from this unit, you can do it as well. This unit is a true hybrid unit. And more colors to go with it. So now here is your heavy frost, and again, doesn't do it justice on camera, but super nice, smooth washes. There's that CTO filter, and that looks really off on camera, but in person, and if the person was to walk in front of that, it would be nice color corrected. So now we'll go back to open spot, show you some Gobo effects. So this also has two Gobo wheels, one static metal stamped, that is for the beam, kind of more beam applications of this unit, and this is the rotating Gobo wheel as well. So here's your 3-facet circular prism, so great for movement effects. And again, this is very fast for theatrical environments. I'm just showing you what it can do. And nice and slow. And again, dimming is also very important. And you might have seen it on the screen, but you can actually see lines within the actual spot itself. And what that has to do is the actual LED refresh rate in the unit itself. And with all of our new profile moving heads, you can actually go into it, and even actually our wash heads, actually I think almost every single unit on this table, you can actually go into it and actually change the frequency, the refresh frequency to match your camera, so you won't see that in person. You won't see that on camera for filming applications. Other than that, moving heads, position-wise, you can use them as front light. For me, if you're having a medium proscenium theater, I would put at least 2 front of house, and I would put maybe 4 to 6 on stage. But again, that's for any. It changes depending on what type of theater you're in. But just wrapping it up, these are great for open spot. These are great for washing. These are great for texturized effects. Everything that you could do with an ellipsoidal 10 years ago, you can do with the profile 10 times easier, 10 times faster, and 10 times less setup. And I think that's kind of just to wrap profile moving heads up altogether. And we have a question.
Yeah, how well do the ellipsoidals, movers, and wash units color match with each other?
Okay, so that's a great question. And I think this is something that ADJ is working towards in the future. However, we have a lot of different varying units over the course of ADJ moving towards being a more middle-of-the-line production company. So these altogether don't have different LED chips in them. When it comes to single source colors like 3K, they're all color matched the same. However, when it comes to more the profile moving heads, like I say, the CMY versus the Focus Spot series, those have different color temperature LEDs, so they don't match 100%, but the Focus Spot 5Z, the Focus Spot 6Z are the same color, the Visi Wash Z37, the Visi Wash Z19, basically all within the same family are going to have the same LED chips inside them and the same color rendering. For instance, the LED that's in the Parzi Move 120 and the one that's in the Cobb Canon Wash, the Parzi Move RGBW are also similar. So we have different families and different groups in the ADJ line, and that's the best way I could say it, is that the the bin matching in the LEDs are for certain families, and they don't, so necessarily Focus versus Visi will be different, but we do try to keep them all in the same line. But no, we do not have a total similar, basically LED technology, same color rendering across our entire line. However, I will say our sister company Elation does have that to offer if you do need it. So if that's really important to you, check them out. They have a lot of great options that all match the same way, and they can explain that more as well. We have another question. I would definitely say, that's a tough question. The way I would put it is that the Elation fixtures are really, really great. And they're also priced at a little bit higher price point, but you get a lot more for that price point. So the more, basically, they cost more, but you get a lot more features inside them. For instance, those are IP rated. These are not IP rated. Another thing that's also really hard to answer that question, the color profiles from Elation are a little older than these units. So that also comes into play, newer versus a little older technology. However, that is our sister company, so the way we've positioned it in the market, that those are units better. Those units are better than ours. They're more expensive, they have better menus, they have better firmware built into them. Again, these are, ADJ is a middle-of-the-line company, so we try to do the best quality for also a really great price point. So my professional opinion is that they're a couple steps lower than the Elation units. However, they're for a lot more attractive price. And that's what we really try to do. We try to jam as many features into these units to create a middle market. You know, Elation, if you can do it, that's great. You know, that's awesome. But if you can't, if you need, let's say, if you need 6 moving heads and you can't do it with Elation, CMY 300 is a great option. ADJ units are a great option. Budget friendly, jam-packed with features, and also great warranty. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but ADJ recently moved to a 2-year warranty on everything. So pretty much everything we offer, from video walls to ellipsoidals, everything has a 2-year warranty, which we cover. I hope that answers your question. That's a tough question to answer. And if you want a true comparison, I would suggest looking at the photometrics that are available online. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, guys. Well, I don't know how long I've been live for, but it felt very short amount of time. I'm sure it was probably longer for you guys. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in to our theatrical Stay Connected video. And my message to you guys and just the community and the entertainment industry altogether is, I know this is a challenging time for all of us, but we will persevere, we will survive, and we will continue on to light another day. And thank you for joining us. My name is Jake Rhodes. You can check out all these great units at adj.com. Thank you for joining us.